Before I begin, I want to ask you, where are you watching from right now? And what time is it where you are? I'd love to know. Drop it down in the comments. Also, if you're new here, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy stories that dig deep into the heart. Your support means the world. I never imagined my silence would be the loudest thing about me. My name is Nia. I am a lioness. But unlike any other lioness in my pride, I cannot roar. Try to picture it, being born into a family where your voice is your power, your roar is your shield, and your silence, well, your silence feels like a curse. From the moment I was a cub, the expectations were clear. My mother's proud eyes, my father's strong gaze, my siblings' whispered hopes, all were wrapped around one idea: I was meant to be fierce. I was meant to roar. But when the time came, all I had was silence. I remember the first time I tried to roar. The sun was just rising, casting pink light across the savanna. I puffed my chest, opened my mouth wide, but what came out was barely a whisper, a fragile sound swallowed by the wind. I felt the weight of every stare. The other lionesses exchanged looks, their eyes heavy with disappointment. I could see it, doubt creeping into their hearts, doubt that would soon spread to mine. My mother was the first to speak. "Nia," she said softly, "a lioness without her roar is like the sun without its light. You must find your voice." I wanted to scream back. I wanted to tell her I was trying, that the silence wasn't for lack of will. But I stayed quiet. Because deep down, I was scared. Scared that I was broken. Scared that I was different. And maybe, most of all, scared that without my roar, I wasn't a lioness at all. The truth was, this silence had become my prison. It wasn't just the pride's judgment, it was my own fear tightening its grip around my heart. And then, there was Koba. Koba, the lion whose roar made the earth tremble. Koba, the rival who had already stolen half our territory. Koba, the shadow looming over our pride, waiting for us to fall. Every time I heard his roar, I felt smaller, weaker, more invisible. But I knew what was coming. If I didn't find my roar soon, our home, my family, and my very life would be lost. And yet, I didn't know how to fight without my voice. In those quiet moments, when the savanna was still and the stars shimmered cold above, I would sit alone and wonder. Is the roar truly what makes a lioness? Or is it something else? Could strength be found in silence? Could courage hide in the spaces between sounds? I didn't have the answers yet. But I was about to start a journey that would change everything. Because this silence, the curse I feared, was also the beginning of my story. And you're here to hear it. So stay with me. There's more to come. If this story moves you even a little, please like, share, and comment below. Tell me your thoughts and where you're watching from. It helps build this community of listeners who love stories as much as you do. There's a part of me I've tried to keep buried, a part that lives in the shadows of my past. When I was young, the savanna felt endless and full of promise. I had a family who loved me, a pride that believed in me, and a world that seemed big enough for all our dreams. But that world shattered in the blink of an eye. I was only a cub when the rival pride attacked. It was chaos, roars, growls, and the pounding of paws against the earth. My father, a lion of unmatched strength and honor, stood at the front lines. I remember watching him from a distance, his mane like a fiery crown, his eyes burning with defiance. But even the strongest fall. That night, everything changed. The attack left scars deeper than any wound you can see. My father never returned. My mother held us close, but her eyes were never the same. My siblings grew quieter, and I lost something inside me. The silence that settled in my throat wasn't just fear. It was grief. It was guilt. Because I believed, somehow, that I should have been stronger. I should have roared louder. I should have protected them. But all I could do was stay silent. That night, my mother sat me down. "You carry more than you know, Nia," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Your roar will come, but it must be earned through understanding the past, not running from it." Her words felt heavy and confusing. How do you earn a roar when the pain feels like a weight chained to your heart? I began to understand that my silence was tied to that night. That my inability to roar was not a weakness, but a shadow of the trauma that had shaped me. And yet, the pride needed me. More than ever. Our home was shrinking. Koba's pride was growing bolder, pushing harder with every passing day. The other lionesses tried to hide their fear, but I could see it in their eyes, whispers of doubt that I wasn't the lioness we needed. One day, a young lioness named Suri approached me. "You're not like us, Nia," she said quietly. "But maybe that's not a bad thing." Her words stuck with me. Because I was starting to see that being different didn't mean I was weak. It just meant my path would be different. But the question remained. Would it be enough? Would I be enough? The weight of the past pressed down on me. But somewhere beneath it all, a small spark flickered. A promise that I could find my roar. Not in spite of my past, but because of it. If you're still with me, please hit that like button and leave a comment. Tell me what you think so far and where you're from. Your support means everything. Here again. Before we get into it, let me know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it for you right now? I'm always amazed how far these stories reach. And if you're feeling this journey so far, do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe so we can keep building this pride together. The days that followed were heavy with heat, not just from the sun, but from the pressure. The land itself seemed to hold its breath. The grass stayed low. The wind shifted strangely. The herds moved further away. And in that stillness, we all felt it. Koba was coming. There was no denying it anymore. The older lionesses sharpened their claws against thorns. The younger ones patrolled the ridge lines, eyes wide and unsteady. But no matter how much we prepared, we all knew. We weren't ready. And I was still silent. Still broken. Or so I thought. I tried every night to roar. Alone, where no one could see me. I stood on the high rocks, stared at the moon, clenched every muscle in my body, but all I ever managed was a hoarse whisper, like breath over bone. What am I missing? I asked myself. Over and over again. I was starting to realize the roar wasn't just about sound. It was tied to something deeper. Something inside me I hadn't faced yet. But there wasn't time to figure it out. One morning, a young scout named Reko came racing back into camp, panting, covered in dust. "They've crossed the river," he said, breathless. "Koba's lions. 5 of them. They are circling the watering holes." Everyone froze. The watering holes weren't just for drinking. They were our symbol of survival. Losing them meant submission. Surrender. Starvation. The council met immediately, my mother, Aunt Mola, the older lionesses. Their voices rose, tense and tired. I wasn't invited, but I listened from the shadows. "We have to strike first," Mola said. "Before they settle in." "We are not strong enough," my mother replied. "Not yet." "Then what?" "Wait for them to take everything." Their words cut like claws through the air. I wanted to speak. I wanted to offer something, a plan, an idea, a spark, but again, the silence swallowed me. I hated it. I hated myself. But then, something happened I didn't expect. Suri, the young lioness who had once said I was different, she stood up in the council and said, "What if Nia led the recon?" A long pause followed. "Nia?" Mola scoffed. "She doesn't even speak, let alone roar. You'd have us follow a shadow." but my mother said nothing. She looked at me. And then she said, quietly, let her try. I don't know what she saw in my eyes that day. Maybe it was the desperation. Maybe the fire. Or maybe the pieces of my father, still alive in me somehow. So I went. With Sari. And Reko. And 2 others. We slipped through the tall grass before dawn, every step heavy with fear. I didn't speak, but I didn't need to. My eyes stayed focused. My ears sharp. Every muscle alert. We found them, Koba's lions, lounging near the southern ridge, marking territory like it was already theirs. And then I saw him. Koba himself. Huge. Scarred. Golden eyes like coals. And when he turned toward us, even from far away, I felt it. The rumble is raw. It roared through the valley like thunder, waking birds, shaking branches, rattling the bones in my chest. It made me want to disappear. But I didn't run. I stood there and stared at him from the ridge. Silent. Still. And in that moment, something strange happened. He looked confused. Almost curious. Like he couldn't understand why a lioness wouldn't run from him. Maybe my silence made me invisible to him. Or maybe it made me unpredictable. Either way, I realized something important. Silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes, silence is power waiting to be aimed. Still with me? Drop a comment, tell me what time it is where you're watching, and don't forget to like and share if this story hits deep. It helps more than you know. They say a lion's roar can be heard 5 miles away. I used to wonder what that felt like, to be heard by the earth itself. To make the wind pause. To force silence on the world around you instead of being trapped in it. But I wouldn't learn what that felt like, not yet. Because before a roar comes, sometimes comes a scream. And that day, I came close. It started just before dawn. The air was thick, unusually cold. My paw sank into the soil like it was mourning something. We had returned from the recon mission with news no one wanted to hear. Koba had set up near the river bend. He wasn't circling anymore. He was claiming. Tension rippled through our pride. No one said it, but we all knew. The fight was closer than we thought. What none of us expected was that Koba would strike that morning. He didn't wait. Didn't give us time to plan, to recover. We were ambushed. I was with Sari when it happened. We were near the western edge of the grasslands, tracking herd movement. I thought I saw movement in the trees, and the next second, we were surrounded. 3 of them. Massive males. Snarling, confident, like they already owned us. Sari growled, instinct kicking in, but I froze. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it was trying to escape my chest. They moved closer, slowly, like they were toying with us. Run, Sari whispered, crouched low. I couldn't. Not again. I had run once before, the day my father died. I remembered hiding behind the rocks, hearing the roar that ended his life. I wouldn't run again. I stepped in front of Sari. My legs shook, but I didn't move. The largest male stepped forward, baring his teeth. His voice was like gravel. No roar. No fight. Then this'll be easy. I opened my mouth. Tried again. But nothing. Just air. Just shame. He lunged. It happened so fast, Sari tackled him mid-air, claws slashing. The others jumped in. The chaos swallowed us. Dust, growls, blood. I could barely see. Then, I heard her scream. Not a roar. A scream. High, sharp, full of pain. Sorry. I turned and saw her limp under one of them, his claws at her throat. And something inside me snapped. It wasn't brave. It wasn't noble. It was rage. White hot, blistering rage that felt like it had been boiling in my chest for years. And for the first time, I roared. It wasn't beautiful. It wasn't perfect. It cracked and tore through my throat like fire. But it was loud. Loud enough to make them stop. Loud enough to shake the air. Loud enough to make them back away. Even I was stunned. My body shook. My throat burned. But Sari was alive. They backed off. And the wind carried my voice like it had been waiting for it all along. After they ran, I collapsed beside her, trembling. She looked at me through blooded eyes and smiled. "You roared," she whispered. I nodded. Tears in my eyes. "I didn't think I could." "You didn't," she said. "Until you had no choice." I stared into the distance, heart still racing. And I realized something cruel and powerful. My roar hadn't come from strength. It came from pain. And sometimes, that's what it takes. Sometimes you have to break before you can rise. Still with me? Then let me know, what time is it where you are? Drop a comment, a thought, or even just an emoji if this hit you. And if it did, please like and share. Every roar counts in this pride. They say betrayal never comes from your enemies. It comes from the ones who hold your heart. And that's what made it burn so deep. After I roared, after Sari and I limped back to camp bloodied but alive, something shifted in the pride. They didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate. They watched me. Like I was new. Like they didn't know what to do with me anymore. For the first time, I was no longer the silent one. I was something else, something dangerous, maybe. And danger always attracts envy. It started with whispers. She only roared out of fear. She's unstable. She'll get us all killed. But I ignored them. Because I still had Sari. I still had my mother. And I was starting to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Until Mola called a private gathering of the senior lionesses. Without me. I overheard it by accident, or maybe it was fate. She was pacing the cave, voice sharp like thorns. Nia's not ready. She's a risk. One roar doesn't make her a leader. She saved Sari, my mother said. And what happens next time? Mola snapped. What if her silence returns when we need her most? I felt like I couldn't breathe. My mother didn't respond. She didn't defend me. She didn't even try. I backed away from the cave before they saw me, my paws shaking. I thought I was finally becoming someone they could believe in. But I wasn't even someone my own mother would fight for. That night, I didn't sleep. And the next morning, the blow came. Mola approached me in front of the others. Nia, she said. The council has agreed. You're to be removed from rotation. No patrol. No guard duty. What? I said, stunned. You're benching me. For your safety, she replied. And ours. Sari stepped forward. That's not fair. She's stronger than half the patrol team. She's unstable, Mola said. And I won't risk the lives of this pride on sentiment. I looked at my mother. Waiting. Hoping. She said nothing. And in that moment, I understood. They didn't fear my silence anymore. They feared what would happen if I roared again. Because power, real power, changes the way people see you. I walked away. My chest felt hollow. My mind spinning. I trusted them. And they turned on me the moment I rose from the dirt. Sari found me later, near the hollow trees. You should fight it, she said. They've made up their minds, I whispered. Then prove them wrong. How? I asked. Another roar. Another battle. What's the point if the ones I protect don't believe in me? She didn't answer. Because she knew the truth. That sometimes, the deepest pain isn't from the wounds others give you. It's from the silence that follows when they don't speak up for you. I didn't know it then, but that betrayal was a seed. A seed that would grow into fire. Because betrayal doesn't just break you. It changes you. And that change. That's where revenge begins. If you're still here, let me know in the comments, what do you do when someone you trust turns their back on you? Also, tell me what time you're watching this. If this part hit you hard, hit the like button and share with someone who needs to hear it. Before we walk further into this story, where are you listening from right now? And what time is it where you are? I want to know who's walking this healing path with me. If you haven't already, like, share, and comment. Not just for me, for the stories you carry too. I left before the sun rose. No one saw me go. No goodbyes. No fight. Just silence. I told myself I didn't care anymore, that if the pride didn't want me, I didn't want them either. But as my paws pressed into the cool earth, every step away from home hurt. The betrayal sat in my chest like stone. But underneath that pain, there was something else. Curiosity. What if there was more to my roar than they ever understood? What if there was more to me than they'd ever tried to see? I didn't know where I was going, only that it had to be far. Far enough that I couldn't hear the voices of doubt. Far enough that I could finally hear myself. After 2 days of walking, through scorched grass and thorny trails, I reached a place I had only heard of in stories, the Old Valley. They said it was sacred ground. Where the first pride once walked. Where the roar was born. A place untouched by time. I didn't expect to find anyone there. But I was wrong. He appeared from the shadows like a ghost. Old. Scarred. His mane silvered with time. At first, I thought he was a spirit. But he was real. A lion. Not from any pride I knew. He studied me for a long moment, then said in a deep, rasping voice. "Your silence is loud, little one." I flinched. "You know who I am?" I asked. He chuckled. "The earth knows. The wind. Even the birds. They carry your name now. Then you know I failed." He tilted his head. Failed. I couldn't lead. Couldn't protect. I couldn't even roar until I was bleeding. "Oh," he nodded. "Then you have roared." "Once," I said. Out of rage. Nothing more. He sat down slowly, his bones creaking like trees. Most only ever roar out of rage. Few ever learn to roar from peace. I didn't understand. Not yet. He didn't tell me his name. Said names didn't matter out here. Only truth did. So I stayed. For days. He taught me things I'd never learned in the pride. How to listen, not just with my ears, but with my whole body. How to move without fear. How to own silence. Your roar is not a sound, he told me. It's a decision. It's knowing who you are before the world demands proof. Those words stayed with me. Because for the first time, I wasn't chasing approval. I was chasing understanding. Every night, I stood alone under the stars. I let the earth breathe with me. I didn't try to roar. I didn't try to be anything. I just was. And one night, weeks after I arrived, something inside me shifted. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just still. I opened my mouth, not to force the sound, but to feel it. And what came out wasn't rage. Wasn't fear. It was truth. It was mine. The old lion heard it from the other side of the valley. He smiled, eyes closed. That, he said, is a roar the world remembers. But peace never lasts. That same night, a raven landed on the edge of the rocks. A messenger. A sign. The pride was under siege. Again. And this time, Koba wasn't just claiming land. He was taking lives. I had found myself. But now, I had to decide what to do with that power. Was I ready to go back? Was I ready to face them, the ones who doubted me? The ones who left me behind? I didn't know yet. But I knew one thing. They would hear me coming. Still listening. Tell me below, what's your favorite line from this part? What part of you is still waiting to roar? And of course, tell me what time it is where you are. If this meant something to you, like and share. There's someone out there who needs this. I didn't come back to prove anything. Not at first. When I returned to the edge of the territory, I didn't roar. I didn't demand to be seen. I just watched, quiet, unseen, like I'd once been forced to live. And what I saw broke me. The pride was crumbling. The once proud hunting trails were scarred with signs of conflict. Our watering hole was poisoned, either by Koba's doing or by neglect. The elders no longer walked tall. The corpse played in silence. Even the wind sounded like it was holding its breath. And Koba, he was no longer circling. He had stepped in. One of his lieutenants now patrolled part of our land openly, daring anyone to challenge it. I asked myself, why hadn't the pride fought harder? And then I realized. They didn't have anyone left who believed they could win. I stayed hidden for 2 days. Watching. Listening. Waiting for a sign. That sign came in the form of sorry. She looked older. Thinner. Worn down like a stone shaped by the river. But her spirit was still there. She found me before I found her. I knew you'd come back, she said, eyes tired but alive. I almost didn't, I admitted. Didn't know if I was ready. Maybe none of us ever are, she said. But we still rise. We walked together, slowly, through what remained of our territory. She filled in the gaps. Mola had tightened control. My mother had withdrawn. Koba's pride had taken 2 more hunting grounds. But no one dared challenge him. No one except a lioness with a broken past and a roar she barely understood. You should lead, Sari said. I laughed, short, bitter. They don't want me. They never did. Maybe not, she said. But they need you now. Need. Not want. There's a difference. That night, I didn't sleep. I stood alone in the clearing where I first tried to roar all those seasons ago. The place where I had once failed. And I remembered the old lion's voice. Your roar is a decision. So I made mine. I wasn't coming back for approval. I was coming back for redemption. And not just mine. The next morning, I walked into the center of the pride. No fanfare. No ceremony. Just me. And silence. Dozens of eyes turned. Some shocked. Some bitter. Some afraid. Mola stepped forward. Her voice cold. You shouldn't be here. I looked her straight in the eyes. I am here. She narrowed her eyes. You think one roar makes you worthy? That your exile gave you wisdom? No, I said. I think pain did. She scoffed. You abandoned us. No, I said, voice steady. You abandoned yourselves the moment you stopped believing we could fight. There was a pause. And in that pause, in that tension, the pride listened. Not because I forced them to. But because they heard me. It wasn't about volume anymore. It was about presence. I walked past Mola, slow and deliberate, and stood atop the tallest stone, the same one my father once used to speak from. And I said, we've lost our ground. But we haven't lost ourselves. Koba thinks we are weak, divided, forgotten. But I've seen the truth. We are still here. Scarred, shaken, but not broken. And if you follow me, not because I'm perfect, not because I roll out, but because I refuse to stay silent one more day. Then we take it all back. The silence that followed wasn't doubt. It was reverence. For the first time, I wasn't a lioness who could not roar. I was a lioness who chose when to roar. And that choice, that strength, was just the beginning. What did you feel during this segment? Who in your life has ever doubted you, and how did you rise anyway? Drop it in the comments. And let me know what time you're watching this. If this story is lifting something in you, like, share, subscribe. Let's roar together. The roar returned to me slowly. Not all at once. Not with fire and thunder. But like a rhythm under my skin, like it had always been there, waiting. After that morning, when I stood on the high stone and the pride listened, things changed. Not overnight. Some still doubted. Some watched with narrowed eyes, waiting for me to fail again. But they followed. Because I didn't demand loyalty. I earned it. I led the next patrol myself, through lands we had avoided for months. We took back the western ridge. Cleared the low water trails. Found a fresh spring we thought had dried up. The pride moved differently now. There was a pause again. A hunger. Not just for survival, but for dignity. And yet, something still haunted me. A silence deeper than the one I had carried all my life. My mother. I hadn't spoken to her since my return. She hadn't stood with Mola when I reclaimed my place. But she hadn't stood with me either. I didn't understand why that hurt so much. Until one night. I found her by the moonrock tree, the oldest place in the valley. A tree so large it had split the sky in two. She didn't look surprised to see me. She just looked tired. Her voice came first. Soft. Worn. You've changed. So have you, I said. Silence. Then she looked at me, eyes full of something I couldn't name. I wasn't strong enough to protect you, she said. Not when you were young. Not when your father, when he. She trailed off, and I realized she wasn't just ashamed of me. She was ashamed of herself. You didn't fail me, I said. Yes, she whispered. I did. I taught you to be silent. I taught you to bury your pain and call it pride. I thought if I raised you quiet, the world might leave you alone. My throat tightened. I needed your voice, I said. And when I found mine, you turned away. I didn't know how to face it, she admitted. Your roar reminded me of what I lost. Of what I never found in myself. We sat together in the dark for a long time. No more anger. No more blame. Just two lionesses, grieving the weight of silence they'd both carried. And in that moment, something cracked open between us. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something better. Truth. I need you, I said finally. She nodded. Then I'm yours. When we returned to camp, the pride watched us side by side, and something shifted in the wind. Not just respect. But unity. It was time. Time to prepare. Time to finish what Koba started. Over the next few days, we trained. Not with brute force. With purpose. We studied the land. Knew every shadow, every ridge, every echo. The young ones watched me closely. The old ones followed silently. And sorry, she never left my side. And then, one evening, a scout returned breathless. They are coming, he said. At dawn. I stood on the high ridge that night, looking out across the valley that raised me. The moon was low. the air sharp. And I whispered, not to the pride, but to the wind itself. They took my father. They poisoned our land. They buried my voice. But I am still here. And tomorrow, they will hear me. The ground felt different that morning. Tighter. Like it knew blood was coming. The pride gathered at dawn. No one spoke. No one had to. The sky was pale gold. The wind barely moved. We had prepared for this. But preparation doesn't kill fear, it just teaches you to move with it. Sari was at my side. My mother stood behind me. The scouts reported movement on the ridge. Koba's lions were on the approach, slow, heavy, confident. There were more of them. Stronger. But we had something else. We had resolve. I stood on the edge of the ridge as the first enemy lion appeared over the hilltop. And then another. And another. 8, 10, 12. And then Koba. Larger than memory. His golden eyes burned into mine like molten stone. He didn't speak. He just grinned. The pride behind me stiffened. Old fear rose in their bones. But I stepped forward. You've taken enough, I said loud enough for all to hear. Today, you return nothing. Koba chuckled. You finally learned to speak. I learned to roar, I said. And now you'll learn to listen. He didn't wait. He charged. His lions followed. And everything broke loose. The battle was chaos. Claws against flesh. Roars like thunder. Dust swallowed the sun. I saw Sari thrown back by a massive lion. I leapt forward and slammed into his side, taking him down. Every breath was survival. Every second was a decision. All around me, my pride fought harder than I had ever seen. They weren't perfect. They weren't fearless. But they were together. Mola, the same lioness who once doubted me, fought like a hurricane beside my mother. The pride was no longer fractured. It was whole. And then, through the smoke of dust and blood, I saw Koba. Waiting. Watching. He wanted me. So I faced him. And it was like facing the storm that killed my father. He charged first, the blur of fury and muscle. We collided in the center of the clearing. Teeth, claws, fury. My body screamed. My ribs cracked. My vision blurred. You'll never be one of us, he growled, pressing down. You were born to be silent. And that was the moment I chose. I let out a roar that cracked the sky. It came from the fire of every scar. Every exile. Every betrayal. Every silent night I ever called in the dark praying for a voice. It was mine. And it shook him. Koba staggered back, stunned. The pride heard it. The enemy heard it. The land heard it. I stood tall, blood down my leg, teeth bared. And I said, I was never born to be silent. I was born to be heard. We clashed again. This time, he faltered. He wasn't used to being mashed. He wasn't used to fighting someone who didn't fear him. With one last heave, I struck low, close to his flank. He roared in pain. And then he ran. Retreated. The others followed. One by one. And then, there was silence. Real silence. Not the kind I used to carry. But the kind that comes after victory. I stood there, chest heaving, body broken, heart full. And the pride gathered around me. They didn't cheer. They didn't bow. They stood with me. Equal. Oh. And alive. Soft reminder. If you're still listening, tell me, what did you survive to find your voice? What battles have you fought silently, alone, and still risen from? Drop it in the comments. And tell me the time you're watching this, I want to know you. Like. Share. Let this roar reach the people who need it. The silence after the battle felt different. It wasn't empty anymore. It was earned. We buried the fallen beneath the sun trees, where the grass still grew thick and the wind always whispered low. No songs. Just memory. Sari walked with a limp now. Mola had a scar across her eye. My mother moved slower. But we were together. The pride wasn't the same as it had been. It was something more. Tested. Bruised. Rebuilt. And for the first time, they looked to me not with doubt, but with trust. Not because I was loudest. Not because I'd won a fight. But because I had become myself, fully. One night, under the crescent moon, the young cubs gathered around me. They asked, "Is it true you couldn't roar before?" I smiled. Yes. Were you scared? I was, I said. For a long time. But how did you learn? I looked at the stars for a while, remembering the days when silence felt like a prison. Remembering the night my voice tore through me like a storm. And I told them, softly. I stopped trying to be like everyone else, and started listening to who I really was. They didn't understand. Not yet. But one day, they would. Because that's the thing about a real roar. It's not something you force. It's something you free. My mother and I sat together the next morning near the river, the one Koba once claimed. The water was clear again. She didn't speak much anymore. But she didn't have to. We'd made peace. Not through apologies. But through presence. And in that stillness, I understood something new. My roar was never just for fighting. It was for calling. For guiding. For healing. And so I used it, not in volume, but in leadership. We grew stronger. Not by fear, but by choice. New generations rose. New trails opened. New lionesses stepped forward, and I showed them how to lead not through power alone, but through truth. Years passed. My mane grew heavy. My bones slower. But my voice, it never faded. It echoed. In every lesson. In every silence broken. In every lioness who thought she was too soft to fight, too quiet to lead, too broken to roar. They looked at me and saw something else. Proof. That you don't have to be born powerful to become unforgettable. So when the next young lioness asked me, what happens if I never roar? I told her this. Then listen closely. Because one day, the world will roar through you. If you made it this far, you didn't just listen to a story. You walked with me. You became part of it. Drop a comment right now. Where are you from? What time is it? And what part of this story hit you the hardest? And please, like, share, and subscribe. Let this echo reach someone who's still learning to roar.